Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the lefts, we go up to the rights, we go up to the middle of independence, we go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
When President Trump says that Iran is in a place of unconditional surrender, he's not claiming the Iranian regime is going to come out and say that themselves. What the president means is that Iran's threats will no longer be backed by a ballistic missile arsenal that protects them from building a nuclear bomb in their country. I could make an empty threat, but if I have no actions to back it up, then it's an empty threat. And so President Trump will determine when Iran is in a place of unconditional surrender, when they no longer pose a credible and direct threat to the United States of America and our allies. It's obviously within the best interest of the United States and the West to no longer have a radical terrorist in charge of Iran, especially as we see their reaction to Operation Epic Fury. They had their missiles turned towards our Gulf and Arab partners in the region. Again, this was a regime that chanted, or still chants, death to America. We look at the way that they are holding the entire world hostage with the restricting of the free flow of energy through the Strait of Hormuz. So the president, I think, is making quite an obvious comment. Again, as for the timeline of the military operations with respect to Iran, we have objectives that we have laid out that the commander-in-chief wants to see achieved. When they are achieved, then it will ultimately be up to the president to end this operation. When those objectives are met, the president will dictate the end of these operations when he deems that Iran no longer poses a credible threat to the United States of America. And again, it goes back to, what does that unconditional surrender look like? Iran can talk all they want, and their words will be very empty when we've completely annihilated their navy, as we are doing, when we've taken out the threat of their ballistic missile capability, when we can finally ensure that they can no longer make a nuclear bomb to threaten the United States and our allies and our troops in the region. And that's what President Trump is ultimately seeking to do with respect to this operation. He is looking at this every single day based on intelligence, based on facts, and based on intelligence that he himself and his negotiators have consumed based on their, again, negotiations with the rogue Iranian regime over the past year. And the president and his team tried in a good faith way to reach a diplomatic deal through peaceful means with the Iranian regime. And Iran chose this path to death and destruction. Iran wanted to attack the United States of America, and the president was not going to sit back and allow that to happen. He was not going to sit back and allow that to happen, and everyone in this room should be grateful for it.
You know, am I the only one that notices every time? Am I the only one that notices that the White House press secretary wears a cross sometimes and doesn't wear a cross? I can only ask, does it melt? I'm just saying, every time she tells a lie, does the cross just melt and just give up? I don't know, terrible joke. Anyway, today's date, March 11, 2026, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know we do pride ourselves on being a news podcast. We only cite from sources with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, The Daily Beast, now CBS News. Wherever extreme left or extreme right you get your views from, we simply don't do that. At the same time, guys, we do try to maintain our professionalism, but let's be honest, words fly, and we may show things that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, what else can we say? They're still trying to top this BS talk of if we didn't hit Iran, they would have hit us first. Iran was scaling up to attack America and its allies. We had no choice but to bomb an Iranian girls' school. We don't feel bad about it. Take what you will. But that's what they're saying at this point, especially with, Caroline Leavitt doing her job, somehow still burning crosses every time she wears one, but still retouting the president's current path of BS to wherever Diaper Don can say next. Speaking of Diaper Don, they bring up this attack because one of the attacks that the U.S. did hit a school that unfortunately did have children lives were lost. Now, you would think a president, you were just told that one of your strikes may have taken out children. You might show a little bit of remorse, but we get this.
American missile strike and a Tomahawk missile likely destroyed that Iranian girls' school. So will the U.S. accept any responsibility?
Well, I
for that
haven't
strike?
seen it. And I will say that the Tomahawk, which is one of the most powerful weapons around, is used by, is sold and used by other countries, you know that. And whether it's Iran, who also has some Tomahawks, I wish they had more. But whether it's Iran or somebody else, the fact that a Tomahawk is very generic. It's sold to other countries. But that's being investigated right now. Yeah, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. President, you've said the war is, quote, very complete, but your defense secretary says this is just the beginning. So which is it, and how long should Americans be prepared
Well, I think
for
you could
this war
say
to
it
last
both.
for?
It's the beginning of building a new country, but they have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft equipment. It's all been blown up. They have no radar, they have no telecommunications, and they have no leadership. It's all gone. So, you could look at that statement. We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further, and we're going to go further. But the big risk on that war has been over for 3 days. We wiped them out in the first 2 days. When you think about it, it's incredible. We wiped out a big Navy, very powerful Navy. These were ships. These were serious ships. These were ships that you buy when you want to win battles. They're all on the bottom floor. The sailors are all running off their ships. They refuse to get on.
I mean, you would literally think, hey, you may have cost young children their lives based on your decisions. And I didn't really know. I didn't really get a lot of information on that. But I know I did get a lot of information on. We bombed the shit out of them. We bombed their Navy. We took out their warships. They have their capabilities are down to zero. I think we're just that awesome. You literally could show an ounce of remorse. Human decency. It's not that effing hard. But the level of, oh, well, yeah, I'm not really sure about that. This is why. Even W, Bush 2.0, a man that got us in Iraq under false pretenses, showed way more remorse than Diaper Dawn. I'm talking Bush, had Dick Cheney, a guy who literally shot someone in the face and they apologized to him. But Bush 2.0 showed a lot more remorse for the war and the decision that he made. Whereas Diaper Dawn can't help but talk about the amazing destruction that he and hardly sober Pete Hegseth caused. And that right there should tell you everything you want to know. That children lost their lives because of your military actions, and you show zero remorse. And even more so to where, again, as we talk about, the upcoming World War III in Iraq, and the president still saying, oh, I'm not ruling out troops on the ground. Diaper Dawn, oh, I'm not bringing troops on the ground. All I gotta say, fellas, if you sign up for selective service and you're under the age of 40, I'm a little concerned for you guys.
Mothers out there are worried that we're going to have a draft, that they're going to see their sons get in and daughters get involved in this. What do you want to say about the president's plans for troops on the ground? As we know, it's been largely an air campaign up until now.
It has been, and it will continue to be. And President Trump wisely does not remove options off of the table. I know a lot of politicians like to do that quickly, but the president, as commander in chief, wants to continue to assess the success of this military operation. It's not part of the current plan right now, but the president, again, wisely keeps his options on the table.
Levitt's comments are in line with what the White House has previously said about any potential plans for troops on the ground in Iran. But questions about a draft in the U.S. are trending online. Sean Timmons, an attorney who practices in military law, joins me now to discuss. Sean, great to have you. We haven't seen a military draft call since the early 70s. What should people know about military drafts?
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. Look, the military draft has been non-existent for over 50 years. You have an all-volunteer military force for 5 decades plus. 1973, I believe July is when the authorization for the draft officially ended. It would take a new act of Congress to restart authorization and appropriations to fund and logistically implement a draft. So I think it's highly speculative. You would probably need to see something along the lines of World War III, either a conflict with Russia or a conflict with China, or some other unforeseen national emergency before the United States were to fully implement the protocols in place for a draft. So I think even a ground invasion of Iran, which is highly unlikely, would probably be handled by the current active force and the reserve force. There are 2 million uniformed members of the military in the active component and the reserves. That's probably more than sufficient to conduct any kind of land invasion of Iran. However, a national emergency, if war broke out with China or war broke out with Russia, it's possible Congress appropriates funds to implement a draft, but everyone should know the president does not have unilateral authority to implement a draft.
Which he's right. But here's the one thing that also should be considered as my camera decided to go out. Apologies, folks. But here's the one thing to consider about what he said. That for the simple fact of the matter, yes, the president does not have the universal authority to conduct a military draft. That being said, however, we also forget this is the same president that currently right now has his GOP has control of the Senate still and has control of the House, even though that margin is getting ever so smaller as we get closer to midterms. So in the meantime, Trump could, if he wanted to, turn around and direct his party and saying, hey, we're going to institute the draft. We want your backing. And that's the problem. That is the entire problem with all of this, that he could institute it if he wants to. Because keep in mind, guys, he went up to Venezuela. He went up to President Maduro out of Venezuela. He somehow did not get impeached. Why? Because Pam Body's not going to do it. Then he decides to attack Iran. Which again, Iran did not have any. Let me tell you something about Iran. Iran wasn't even looking at us. Not since the deal that they had with President Obama. They didn't look our way, even though they said death to the US. But on behalf of all black people, we're like, your only problem is with one guy at one address in one location. Go deal with him. We ain't got no beef with you. Signed all black people. The thing is that what Trump is doing, he realizes that, hey, I may be on limited time here, as if health-wise he was already on limited time, but he realizes that he's on limited time. So he's pulling out every stop because what's cool crazy about this is what those multiple court cases should have done to him before he was president. And what I mean by that is, he had the court case in Florida about holding on to documents he shouldn't have, the fraud case in Manhattan, the rape case with Jeannie, the sexual assault case with Jeannie Carroll, the election interference case in Fulton County, Georgia. Those 3 cases alone, outside of many others, should have landed him in jail, underneath the jail actually. But as we all know, when you become president, apparently you can be indicted or charged with anything, which is still that is still the weirdest opinion of the DOJ to me. But what do we have now? Well, Trump has a lot of impeachable offenses. And I do mean a lot. But the current Congress isn't going to impeach him. No. Fortunately, Republicans have majority, and it takes 2/3 of Congress to impeach a president. So we know that's not going to happen. So what does he do in the meantime? Unfortunately, whatever he wants. That's why he was able to go up to Venezuela. That's why he was able to start with Iran, saying we didn't get them, they would get us first, and all this other bullshit. Even more so when he talks about Cuba. Listen how he talks about Cuba. And that tells you this comes from a person that literally thinks they're untouchable right now.
Moments of life. That's President Trump warning of imminent action against Cuba and boasting about U.S. military strength at the Shield of America's summit over the weekend. The White House billing the summit as a historic grouping of Latin American countries with a focus on battling cartels in the region. Trump suggests that U.S. intervention in Cuba is a key point on his list of foreign policy priorities and actually joked about how easy it would be to deal with the island as tensions mount between the two countries. An oil shortage
Take
also.
about 2 days off, Marco? No, he won't. Maybe an hour. He'll take 1 hour off and then he'll finish up a deal on Cuba. That'll be an easy one.
An oil shortage still leaving millions of Cubans without power as well. Oil to the island nation severely impacted when Trump halted Venezuelan shipments to Cuba after U.S. captured former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro.
And see, that's the thing. See, that's the part that also we said week before last. That remember we sat there and said that Venezuela is literally sitting on the largest reserve of oil, more than the U.S., Russia, and the Saudis combined, and that Venezuela has poor infrastructure, and that all these oil companies looking at Venezuela like the next big gold rush. Hence why they cannot wait to get over there and start their own drilling. Well, unfortunately, Cuba was getting their oil as well. Cuba was also getting their oil from there as well. And since we invaded Venezuela, and Venezuela's current president wants to play ball with Trump, what's happened? Cuba, unfortunately, is now in the dark. And what is Trump saying this entire time? Oh, well, Cuba will be easy because you've already laid the groundwork. See, what kills me is he's already laid the groundwork in how he wants to do this. Because he tried to do that. Because, again, everybody thinks, well, this is all distractions from the Epstein files. It's not. Trust me, the Epstein files, I would love to go in that tonight, but the stuff that was released, I'm almost certain I can't even show on here unless I heavily censor the pictures. Because the DOJ did release pictures from the Epstein files that honestly, if they don't make your blood boil and wonder why no one has faced crimes yet, as far as charges yet, you don't have a pulse. But we'll get to the Epstein files a little bit later in another podcast. But understand, the Epstein files, this is not a distraction. This is Trump pretty much saying, I can do whatever I want. Congress will not stop me, and all you can do is watch. And that's what he's doing. So if you think he will not go after Cuba, we also the same thing about Venezuela. We're all worried especially if you are enlisted in the military or active duty or reserve, you might be called upon. At the same time, I agree with Jesse Ventura when he sat there and said this. Anytime a politician calls for war, someone in your family needs to serve. Because unfortunately, it's always those of low, middle, or no income or poor income families that their children are always sent off to war to go. How's it always said? Poor people are always sent off to fight a rich man's war, and that's the case in this one. Because because Iran can sit there and say death to the U.S. Well, this is what happens because again, the U.S. decided, forget rules of engagement. We're going to attack them first, which is exactly what they did, which exactly puts us in the situation we are now, which, again, I would not be surprised if we do see boots on the ground in Iran. Because, again, Trump believes he can do whatever he wants. And for right now, he can because no one will check him. Bondi will not check him. His own party will not check him. And the Supreme Court is 50-50 on whatever they decide to do whenever he sends something their way, which seems to be almost once every 2 weeks now. But we will see because, again, the fact that he didn't joke about, see, a lot of people think, oh, he's joking about Cuba. No, he's being dead serious about Cuba. And we all need to start paying attention to it. But even though it's not all doom and gloom on this podcast, we actually had some good news because, well, we called it. And it's been a long time coming for this one.
Tonight, Secretary Noem no longer. President Trump ousting perhaps the most divisive member of his cabinet, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who led his immigration enforcement crackdown. The president abruptly announcing her firing on social media, writing, "I thank Christie for her service at Homeland," saying she had numerous and spectacular results, especially on the border. Moments later, this awkward split screen.
Thank you for coming to this conference.
Noem on stage at a law enforcement conference, but never mentioning her firing. A top administration official tells NBC News President Trump already frustrated by a series of Noem's high-profile controversies. This week was infuriated by her testimony before lawmakers, where she was repeatedly pressed on a role securing a $220 million border security ad campaign that featured her prominently.
If you come here the right way, your American dream can be as big as these endless skies.
Correct. We work with OMB. Yes.
He did.
Yes.
A White House official says President Trump never signed off on the spending. During this year's immigration raids in Minnesota that left 2 protesters dead, Noem came under fire for accusing Alex Preddy of domestic terrorism, despite video contradicting her account. Noem's firing comes just weeks after President Trump praised her to Tom.
Do you still believe in Kristi Noem to deliver on your vision of immigration?
Look, she was in charge of the border. The border's closed. I mean, everybody gives me A+ on the border.
Noem was a lightning rod for criticism, hosting a photo op at a maximum security Salvadoran prison, purchasing a luxury plane that DHS claimed would be used for deportation flights, and facing allegations of an affair with her top advisor, Corey Lewandowski, who an administration official says is also expected to depart. Noem brushed off questions about the relationship at a congressional hearing this week. President Trump naming Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma the next DHS secretary, pending Senate approval.
There's an opportunity to build off successes, and there's also opportunities to build off things that maybe didn't go quite as planned.
Peter joins us now from the White House. And Peter, the president has publicly praised Noem, but you have new reporting tonight on what's been going on behind the scenes?
Tom, that's right. The president announced Noem will move to a newly created position overseeing a security initiative. But tonight, an administration official tells NBC News that Noem's drama, in this person's words, overshadowed and distracted from the president's immigration agenda, which this official insists will continue full force.
She will not be missed because, again, there's two parts to this. First off, Kristi Noem will not be missed. She was a terrible hire. She was definitely not qualified for the job of Department of Homeland Security. She was pretty much using every photo op she could get her hands on, and then you accused a U.S. citizen who was a nurse that he was a domestic terrorist because he was shot and killed by the Gestapo ICE. All because he tried to help a protester. And then let's not forget the multiple other offense she caused, blowing through the DHS's budget in less than a year. She blew through the budget of the Department of Homeland Security in a year. That alone tells you everything you want to know. And then the horrible, hiring bonuses, things of that nature, they brought on everybody they could. At the same time, she thought she had Diaper Don's protection. I will say whatever it is I want to say, and you can't do spit because it takes a congressional action to remove me from Congress, or the president would have to remove me. Well, come to find out, Ice Barbie, the president can only do so much. Why? Because they were getting fed up with you. You were too much in the spotlight in the wrong way. At the same time, folks were wondering about your spending. The fact that your husband's company was getting contracts. At the same time, the man you was actually messing with wasn't really your husband. It all adds up. And then the piece de resistance of it all is, I don't think firing's enough. I don't think Kristi Noem being fired is enough. I do think she does need to be brought up on charges. I do think that she needs to face her crimes. I think there does need to be more legal action taken upon her, because simply removing her from office and replacing her with Markwayne Mullin is, well, that's Trump in itself. Because for all those that don't know what I'm getting at here is, if Trump could get away with it, he would hire all men. Trump is racist, misogynistic, and sexist. Because you know why? Look at the last 2 positions held by women in his administration. Were they replaced by women or were they replaced by men? And what I mean by that is Pam Bondi is no longer answering questions about the Epstein files, or at least not in most. which is like, well, she wasn't fired. It's just the fact that her deputy assistant general is doing questions now, which is a man. He is now taking questions. Pam Bondi either will not take interviews or will refuse flat out to answer questions about Epstein files, even though that is her main priority. Meanwhile, Kristi Noem has been removed. Is she being replaced by another woman? No, she's being replaced by a man. This alone will tell you everything about Trump's administration. He only takes on women that are loyalists. And let's be honest, for the longest part, Kristi Noem was a loyalist. She did exactly what everyone in Trump's administration does. Praise him, kiss his ass, and said he's the best thing since sliced bread, while being underqualified and should not be in the position that she's been given. And so what does Trump do to reward that loyalty? Turns around and says, I'm sorry, you're fired, and replaces you with a man, because that's what he prefers. So for all those in the MAGA land, you can be racist, you can be sexist, you can be a bigot, you can be misogynistic, and at the same time, you can still be an idiot. However, to Kristi Noem, you will not be missed. But speaking of things that just don't make any sense, and again, this is, Trump trying to answer an age-old question that nobody's asking but him. Remember I sat there and said that Fulton County, the county that Trump literally called, that Trump looked into, because apparently Trump, for the longest time, for all those that don't remember, called the Georgia Secretary of State looking for 11,000 plus votes when his last previous election that he lost. Yeah. Now he sets his sights on Arizona. Why? Because he wants to answer that age-old question that apparently has been bugging him.
The Department of Homeland Security officially opening an investigation into the 2020 election results in Arizona, a state that Trump lost. A source tells us that Homeland Security Investigations is now looking into the results. This particular division is traditionally charged with investigating drug smuggling and human trafficking. Arizona's Democratic Attorney General calling it an unserious investigation that is based on nothing but conspiracy theories and lies. DHS saying they would not comment on any active investigations. Local officials insist there's no evidence of fraud. All right, so where do we stand? Let's bring in our Washington Bureau Chief, Rick Klein. All right, no evidence, just appeasing to Trump. What do you think is going on here?
Well, clearly it's responsive to what President Trump has continued to say, his unproven allegations about the 2020 election. There has not been any fraud that has emerged in any of these cases, but you have that in conjunction with what we've seen most recently in Georgia, and a lot of different parts of government are pursuing this. This is pretty far afield for Homeland Security investigations, as you just pointed out, but their mandate in some way is to look for crimes. And if they think that there are crimes here committed that affect Homeland Security, that's their right to at least begin to investigate it.
Clearly, this continues to be Trump's obsession. But at the end of the day, could these investigations impact the midterms at all?
Well, first, don't foreclose the possibility that it finds something. I mean, if any of these investigations find something real that makes people re-examine, then I think that we're talking about a very big reckoning. It seems unlikely given how many eyes and how many recounts and how many people have looked at it. But the bigger impact might be that when President Trump talks about nationalizing the elections, he's talking about things like the SAVE Act, which he's pushing for. He's also talking about potentially using other levers of the government to essentially intimidate voters or provide quote unquote security at places that might dissuade people who aren't very comfortable around law enforcement from showing up and voting. And so the climate, the culture around it could have an impact. And that's something that I know has some Democrats and even some Republicans worried that even if there isn't a nationalization of the elections, if you have all these different agencies making noise about it, there was talk of declaring an emergency that it would allow the military to be used. There's talk about ICE agents outside polling places, although the Trump administration said that wouldn't happen. All of those things add to extra scrutiny, extra fear maybe about going to the polls, and extra concerns around around the election that could just undermine confidence.
But when you think of the Department of Homeland Security, you're thinking of drug smuggling, human trafficking. You're not thinking of an agency that investigates election results.
No, definitely not. I mean, look, some of the more outlandish conspiracy theories involving the 2020 election involve Venezuelan voting machines and Italian spy satellites. All of this has kind of the international intrigue that would potentially be interesting to a Homeland Security investigatory agency, as would be any kind of foreign intervention in elections. But there hasn't been any credible evidence that makes this a Homeland Security urgent issue. Of course, they can investigate what they like. They'd have to bring forward whatever evidence they had, and if it gets to a stage of a prosecution, nothing hurts from looking around, they would say. But yeah, this is not core to the typical mission of the Department of Homeland Security.
I'm just gonna save you some time. Witch hunt. Nothing's there, and it really isn't. The fact that, again, Arizona during the 2020 elections, there was no case of fraud. There wasn't. Although Trump and his cults, for some odd reason, believe that it is. There's nothing there. Hence why he wants to go to Fulton County, Georgia. He wants to get the election records there from the 2020 election, not realizing that every election, as he claims, this election wasn't fair, it wasn't balanced. Every election, every U.S. election has always been secure, has never had any faults, and if there was any evidence of fraud voting, it has been found with conservatives / Republicans. Again, this is Trump sitting there wanting to solve his own conspiracy theory and hoping to God he can do it. That is it. And yet, the Department of Homeland Security is going to waste taxpayer money to do that. And that alone screams volumes. But speaking of Trump, because he done turned around and threatened everybody with the SAVE Act and pretty much sat there and said, if you do not pass my SAVE Act, well, there will be consequences. For all those that don't remember the SAVE Act, let me bring you up to speed on this level of bullshit.
The Save America Act is headed to the Senate after passing the House. The bill would require government-mandated proof of citizenship, such as passports or birth certificates, to register to vote. It would also require states to remove non-citizens from existing voter rolls. Republican Congressman Mike Herodopoulos from Florida is a co-sponsor of the bill. He joins us now for more. Congressman, thank you for your time. So non-citizens are already prohibited from voting in federal and state elections. So why is this all necessary?
Well, I think most importantly, we want to make sure we have photo ID. You don't have to be a Republican to believe in this. Overwhelmingly, Republicans, Democrats, Independents all believe you should require photo identification. As you know, 14 states currently do not require that. And in order to board a plane or buy alcohol, for that matter, you need an ID. Considering the foundation of our government is a vibrant, safe democracy, we want to make sure that that is ensured, that only Americans vote in American elections.
So last week, we spoke with a nonpartisan Brennan Center for Justice. They called this bill disastrous. So I want to play some of that sound for you right now when we're going to talk on the other side. Take a listen.
First and foremost, the SAVE Act would block millions of Americans from being able to vote. The SAVE Act would require a passport or birth certificate or other citizenship document to register. And we know that over 21 million Americans do not have ready access to those documents. In fact, roughly half of Americans have a passport to begin with, and millions don't have either of those documents at all. This policy is a brazen voter suppression effort. It would especially burden young voters and voters of color.
All right, Congressman, what's your response to that?
Well, to call that group nonpartisan is a joke. That'd be one part. The second part of it would be that everybody who flies in a plane knows you need a real ID. And this is, again, a safeguard for our democracy. As you know, the Democrats in 2016 crowed left and right that Donald Trump was not a legally elected president. We were not happy with the 2020 results. What better way to affirm making sure only Americans are voting in American elections is to require ID and make sure it's a photo ID. And we do a citizenship check. Every other major country does this in national elections. We want to make sure that people trust the election results. That's why we're moving this forward. And these were the same hysterical comments made when they changed the election laws in the state of Georgia. And more people actually voted after they put those safeguards in place. So I'm very confident that photo ID is the right way to go.
Where did this idea come from and why now?
Well, first of all, it's the common sense idea. When you tell people that they don't have to show photo ID in 14 states in order to vote, it's like, what are you talking about? That can't be the law, can it? It is. In 14 states, no photo ID. A lot of people are worried about some of the comments being made about illegals voting or other people who are not eligible. We just want to safeguard the basis of democracy. I'm a United States history teacher. I believe that if we lose confidence in our elections, we lose the country. And so we want to make sure that only people who are legally registered to vote, American citizens, will vote. And you verify that with a simple photo ID, just like you do before you vote. Go on a plane, or let alone purchase alcohol, or probably check into a hotel.
So if this was such a big deal, why wasn't this done during Trump's first term?
Well, I don't know, because I wasn't here. But what I do know is I'm here now, and I want to pass things like the SAVE Act. I want to give people the confidence once again that their vote counts. One person, one vote. It's the American way. And Congress should have an active role to make sure that the voter rolls are clean and that people who are truly eligible to vote, vote. And anybody who tries to do nefarious things is not eligible to vote.
So President Trump has called for Republicans to take over elections and nationalize voting. Would you support that?
Well, I think you're mischaracterizing it. Congress has long had a role in getting involved in election law, whether it be back in 1845, when we made it where November would be the elections for Congress after the harvest, before winter set in. 1965, of course, the Voter Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, and of course, HAVA and other voting things we've done in recent years. Congress should play an active role. It doesn't mean we're nationalizing elections. It means we're setting up basic standards, which are common sense: photo identification, making sure you're the person who actually you say you are, so there is not rampant voter fraud that could take place. And it happened back in the day. I can tell you as a history teacher, back in the 1880s, 1890s, where people go to multiple voting sites, say they're someone who they're really not. Let's get rid of all that. Modern technology can easily solve the problems, as the partisan Brennan Center talked about before.
So when President Trump says he wants to take over elections and nationalize voting, and I just repeat what he says, what part am I getting wrong?
Well, what I'm saying is, the way I view it, I can't speak for the president, is...
I know, but what I'm saying is, if the president of the United States says something and then we report on what he says, that's what the president says. I mean, how am I mischaracterizing his own words? I mean, that this is what he's saying. We can play the sound. Actually, do you know what? Let's just play the sound. We can play the sound here.
The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting. And we have states that are so crooked, and they're counting votes.
We can't allow cheating in elections. Now, if we need to put in federal controls as opposed to state controls, remember this: they're really an agent. They're really accumulating the votes for who wins an election. If they can't do it honestly and it can't be done properly and timely, then something else has to happen.
So just using what the president just said there in those two clips, do you support what he just said there?
Well, let me again go back to history. In the 1960s, when southern states did not allow African Americans to vote, federal people came downstairs and down south and made sure they actually were able to register to vote. If we think there's some nefarious things happening in the South or other parts of the country, of course, federal agents will come in to make sure you have the idea of one person, one vote. This is what happened in the civil rights movement. And again, we're in a case right now when in 2016, Democrats said that somehow Donald Trump stole the election. I can run you 20 minutes of that. In 2020, a lot of Republicans are concerned about that. So why not make it common sense? Everybody knows that you show photo ID before you vote. It's a very easy thing to do. Credit card companies verify these things every single day. We have the technology to easily make sure that people who are eligible to vote can quickly get the necessary information. After all, you do it when you go for, again, going on an airplane requires photo ID, and the Real ID Act affirms those basic things. So again, it's common sense, it is historic in nature, and it's nothing new. Congress should play an active role to make sure that it's one person, one vote.
Okay. First and foremost, if that guy's a history teacher, I am fairly certain every one of his students failed. I am almost certain, because my God, the level of reach. And again, this what kills me, guys. This is honestly what kills me about these guys that come on here, that Literally, I think this guy was Mike. What's his name? Mike Harold. Oh, good Lord. Just know he's a Republican from Florida. Tells you everything you want to know. Here's the crazy part. Okay, the fact that he keeps on saying, well, I'm a history teacher, so back in the 1890s, this happened before. If I was the journalist that was interviewing him, I would hold his feet to the effing fire. Where in 1890? Really? You had to go back nearly 2 centuries to find something that works in your favor. And on top of that, I love the fact that the whole thing about the Save America Act is nothing more, as they put it, was, oh, well, we just want to make sure that everybody is voting only once. So one person, one vote. Then, okay, so this is what's going to make my head hurt. What's going to make my head hurt, folks, is for the simple fact of the matter. It's just that they said you had to have ID to vote because, as the Republicans have sat there and said, illegal people have been voting. Really? Because in most states, and I love how they said this, in most states, you have to have a government issued ID. A lot of people have either been using their IDs, their passports, birth certificates. They have been using whatever is allowed in their state, specifically in their county, to register to vote. And like myself, I'm in Tennessee. I didn't show my driver's license. Even though I have my registration, even though I have my voter registrations card, even though I still have it, I have yet to be asked at a voting booth, do I have it? You know what they go by? My driver's license. Been that way since I could vote when I was 18. Been that way. So what the GOP has actually done, they've created this false narrative. And as you heard the so-called former history teacher, thank God, he tried to say, well, not every state has this. There's 14 states. Okay. So California, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Pennsylvania, and Vermont, and the District of Columbia are the ones he mentioned that technically you do not have to have a driver's license or a government issued ID. It depends on the state. For example, California, you can use photo ID cards, your student ID card if you have one, a passport, a recent utility bill, or a document from the government proving your identity. And that can go, I mean, it's different for any of these other states that don't automatically require you to have a voter ID, have a government issued ID. But that's them. But that's the argument he's trying to make. The argument the conservatives are trying to make, that, hey, that illegal immigrants are still voting, even though illegal immigrants can't vote, because your vote has to be registered, you as a U.S. citizen, in order to vote. Of course, illegal immigrants don't vote. Illegal immigrants don't get benefits. Illegal immigrants are not a part of SNAP. But you know what illegal immigrants have been doing? Paying taxes into the U.S. But not to get away from the Save America Act. This is what they're saying. That you need to have a real ID, compliant ID showing citizenship, or you have to have a passport, or a military ID with proof of U.S. birth, or a government-issued ID showing U.S. birth. Now, for a lot of people that are wondering, this doesn't seem like a problem. It would be if you're a woman, specifically if you're a married woman. So let me just start from the beginning. A real ID. Yes, unfortunately, real IDs, especially a lot of states are enforcing that. Again, Tennessee, you have to have a real ID. I unfortunately had to go to the DMV and apply for mine. And so did my wife. Unfortunately, it's just a sign of the times. It effing sucks. A passport. Let's be honest. Not everybody has one. Especially if you try to get one now, it's backlogged. But like the journalist said in the beginning, not a lot of people are going to have passports. Military ID, unless you have served in the U.S., you're not going to have military ID. And then this is the part where I'm going to get to. Government issued ID showing U.S. birth, your birth certificate. So here's the reason why I sit there and say, if you're a woman and you're married, this is going to harm you. Because Let's say, for example, you don't have a real ID. Let's say, for example, you don't have a passport. Let's say you never served in the military, but you have your birth certificate that shows your maiden name, not your married name. So, in theory, if the Save America Act passes, married women would be affected by this because, and I'll say it again, if you're trying to go up there and you don't have a real ID and your birth certificate shows your maiden name, in reality, that could discredit you from voting. And let's be honest, I have sat there and said what Taco and them are trying to do. I have sat there and said that they are trying to move the goalpost. I have sat there and said that what he is doing is hedging his bets. This man is worried to death about the midterms. And I said before, if Democrats got their shit together, they could have an overwhelming landslide. Because here's the end goal. And I'm going to say what the end goal is for Democrats. Here's the end goal. The end goal is if the Democrats can get 2/3 of Congress in exactly 8 months from now, if the Democrats can get a majority of Congress, Trump's cooked, as the young kids say. Trump will be cooked. His administration will be cooked. They all could, this could possibly be the largest amount of impeachment proceedings ever done by an administration. The Democrats, if they got their shit together, if they got 2/3 majority or more in Congress in the midterms, if they did get the House and the Senate by overwhelming majorities, and all Democrats got to sit there and say is, if we win the House and the Senate by overwhelming numbers, we will send Trump packing. That's it. That's all. I mean, outside of the many impeachable offenses and, is your life any better under this guy? Either way, this man has given you a treasure trove to work with, Democrats. And now the Save America Act, that's his Hail Mary because he cannot nationalize voting. Voting has always been left up to the states. The U.S. Constitution proves that. But he is trying his hardest to control it and spouting every lie, every greatest hits. Unfortunately, the same effect is the lies ain't hitting like they used to. So what has he done? He has sat there and said to Congress, either my Save Act gets passed or I don't sign any other bills. Yeah, here's the problem with that, Diaper Don. We don't really need you to make bills into law.
Nobles in Washington, where more Republicans are throwing their support behind President Trump's push for Congress to overhaul voting in America ahead of the midterms, as he threatens to unilaterally overhaul elections if Congress fails to act. Of course, it all comes as the president and his party struggle in the polls and face the prospect of losing control of Congress this November. With the midterms approaching, the White House-backed Save America Act now has 50 Senate Republicans backing it after Maine Senator Susan Collins became the latest to declare her support. The legislation, which narrowly passed the House last week, would require new voters to show proof of citizenship to register to vote. It would also mandate photo ID across all 50 states to cast a ballot, even if voting by mail. And it would require states to verify voter registration with the Department of Homeland Security. Senate Majority Leader Thune has promised to bring the bill to the floor for a vote, but Democrats right now have the votes to block it. Yesterday, Senator Scott of Florida, Rick Scott, I should say, brushed off concerns the bill could create logistical problems ahead of the midterms if it passes.
We have 50 people on it now. What I tell everybody, call every U.S. senator it's already passed the House. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. It doesn't really matter. We all want election security.
Senator Lisa Murkowski has said that she has some concerns because if this were to pass, this could impact the elections happening this year, and logistically, that could be a nightmare for local election offices. What do you say to that?
So that's not been what people have told me. Everybody has to show ID for everything else. How's that a big difference? It's not a big change.
So Democrats have slammed the bill, arguing it's an effort to disenfranchise voters. This is what Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said.
They make it so hard to get any kind of voter ID that more than 20 million legitimate people, mainly poorer people and people of color, will not be able to vote under this law. We will not let it pass in the Senate. We are fighting it tooth and nail. It's an outrageous proposal that is, that shows the sort of political bias of the MAGA right. They don't want poor people to vote. They don't want people of color to vote because they often don't vote for them.
Meanwhile, President Trump vowing to overhaul voting by himself if he has to, writing on social media, there will be voter ID for the midterm elections, whether approved by Congress or not, as he makes a full throttle push for changes to elections ahead of the midterms, repeatedly calling for the federal government and by extension Republicans to take control of elections, despite the Constitution granting that power to the states.
The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting.
If a state can't run an election, I think the people behind me should do something about it. We can't allow cheating in elections. Now, if we need to put in federal controls as opposed to state controls, remember this, they're really an agent. They're really accumulating the votes for who wins an election. If they can't do it honestly and it can't be done properly and timely, then something else has to happen.
Joining me now is our NBC News team, senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor, Garrett Hake at the White House.
So let me stop it right there, just because that's going into something else. Because again, this is what Trump is saying. Pass my bill that'll make voting harder for people, or I won't sign any bill that comes across my desk. Now, here's the thing. For all those that, failed civics class or you were a product No Child Left Behind, bills can be made into law without the president. He can veto it, sure, but it goes back to Congress. And if it does get 2/3 majority, that bill becomes law regardless of what the president thinks. So Trump could sit there and say, oh, well, I'm not going to sign any bills. If the House backs it and the Senate backs it, that's pretty much like, well, say what you feel, but this bill just became law. You can veto it once, but if it goes right back and the House and Senate still agree and push this forward, not much Trump can do. So his threat of not signing any bills, sounds more like a whining child wannabe dictator than a president. So I always think it's funny where, everybody, folks that fail civics classes or folks that think that Trump is just the greatest thing since sliced bread, really forget in this country, we do have checks and balances. And that threat is about as empty as, you know what? Let me not say that joke. Let's just say that, Trump giving a threat is like a chihuahua barking at a Rottweiler. All it's going to do is make us laugh. But again, we shouldn't be surprised. What also isn't surprising, guys, that we're about to enter World War III as well. People are wondering, why in the world is gas not lowered? Because Trump said that he can get gas down to under $2 a gallon. Well, if you haven't noticed, in a war, there's only two winners: oil companies and ammo and gun manufacturers. Guess which one we're about to talk about?
Gas prices are rising across the country despite a slight drop in oil prices. Let's bring in AAA spokesperson Axia Diaz for more on that part of the story. Axia, oil prices are down, but gas prices are still rising. Why?
Yeah, they're going up. So this is the time of year when gas prices would go up naturally. And that's something to remember. This Iran conflict is coinciding with the time of year when spring break season kicks off, which means gasoline demand goes up and prices go up. Also, summer blend gasoline will hit the market soon, and that's more expensive to produce. So that cost is passed down to the consumers. We're paying about the same as we were in the summer of 2024. We are still nowhere near, though, the highs of 2022. After the Russia-Ukraine conflict began at that early spring time, we saw prices spike 60 cents in 1 week, and then they stabilized but kept going up incrementally until we peaked at $5 for the national average, of $5 a gallon. That's the highest it's ever been. We're not there yet. Could we get there? you cannot predict gas prices because they're so volatile. And even what we've seen the past 24 hours, when we saw a price of crude oil go up beyond $100 a barrel, now it's back down to the 80 range. It fluctuates daily. It's too volatile to predict. But again, this is the time of year when higher gas prices are to be expected.
Except gas prices typically increase around this time of year anyway because of spring break.
Yeah.
So how do you know whether the surge we're seeing right now is due to the war or if it's just the routine increase in demand?
A good question. And you watch crude oil prices. So that's very telling, right? Because even if crude oil prices were in the, let's say, $50, $60 range, which is what we saw in 2025, you're still going to see that curve in the spring, summer, because demand's going up and gas prices naturally go up. But when you see crude oil prices hitting $90, $100 or beyond a barrel, then you know it's in direct correlation with what's happening globally. This is a global market. So even though we don't import fuel and gas and oil from Iran, there's a ripple effect, and that's why we're feeling it here at home. So you never know exactly which day, how much you're paying. Does it have to do with geopolitical tensions? Does it have to do with domestic demand? It's all sort of one package, but we do know that this is the time of year when gas prices go up because demand is rising as the weather is warming up and more people are traveling.
So I find it interesting that whenever we do actually have a war, or we actually have a what's the word I'm looking for? We also have a natural disaster that seems to be along the coast that hits oil refineries. Gas prices go up. Now, to a point, that is true. Spring break is happening for a lot of people. Some people still want to go out and travel. I personally wouldn't, but I would say I would say travel out the country. Maybe out of the country, you probably shouldn't right now. But going places, let's be honest. People want to take a vacation. No problem with that. Gas is going to go up because demand goes up. But it amazes me where a lot of folks are going, why is gas still going up? It's amazing when folks say that and not realize it. Well, the president said, no, the president does not control the price of gas. The oil companies do. No matter what they tell you, the oil companies control the price of gas. It's just that all this gets passed along to the consumer, meaning you. So, of course, we need vehicles to get from point A to point B. We need gas in those vehicles to get to point A to point B. So, unfortunately, we are stuck paying the toll because, well, until we actually have electric vehicles that are sustainable, or for the fact of the matter, we actually can get off the dragon juice, the dinosaur juice. This is the story we're stuck with, unfortunately. But moving right along, guys, I wanted to cover this story because, guys, this to me is crazy. There is a person that was on death row in Alabama, right? In Alabama Governor KIV's own words, this man wasn't supposedly in crime, right? Did not shoot the victim, did not direct the trigger man to shoot the victim, and had left the store before the crime occurred. And this man was about to be executed. Now, again, this man, in the governor's own words, did not commit the crime, but yet will still serve life in prison. I wish I could make this up.
I'll bring you an update now. The story we brought you on Friday about an Alabama man on death row who did not kill anyone. Charles Sonny Burton was set to be executed on Thursday. But just hours ago, the governor commuted his death sentence. Burton was one of 6 men involved in an armed robbery in 1991 that ended with the murder of a customer, Doug Battle. Burton did not pull the trigger in the shooting. Like Burton, the gunman was also set to face execution. His sentence was commuted years ago. Our Dan Slepian spoke with Burton from prison before his sentence was commuted. Remember, this was part of our story we brought you here on HJN on Friday.
Did you know a murder was about to happen?
No, I didn't assist nobody. I didn't aid nobody. I didn't tell nobody to shoot nobody.
Now, minutes after that piece aired last week, the Alabama governor's office told NBC the governor had no plans to grant Burton clemency. But today, it appears the governor has changed her mind. Kay Ivey saying in an 11th hour ruling that executing Burton would be unjust. Burton is now sentenced to life without parole. We'll keep you posted.
Crazy, isn't it? Now, keep in mind, the governor, this bag of bones right here of Alabama, literally sat there and said the man did not commit the crime, supposedly left before the crime occurred, and was in no way a part of it. But yet the whole thing was, well, he was convicted of it. He was convicted by a jury of his peers and had to serve, and it was sentenced to die. You literally, and said, this is why I say when it comes to the South, only in the South are they adamant about just either taking a guy out or killing a guy. They are literally and figuratively adamant. And this man, who honestly, because here's the thing about it, crimes that were done in the South, in my opinion, and I'm from the South, born and raised in the South, kind of hate the South, but there is history of cases upon cases upon cases of African American men and women who were tried in all white juries, whether it's Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina. I cannot tell you enough. When it comes to the South, people of color do not get a fair shake in courts. So if the simple fact of the matter is, if the governor has all this evidence and he did not commit the crime, why not grant clemency? Because to me, it's like, so you basically said, well, because of the trial, which more than likely was fixed against him, your hands are tied. This lets you know that there is so much more going on with these cases, and it betwixt my biscuits. It betwixt my biscuits because, unfortunately, until certain people get removed or they're no longer in office or no longer be able to affect, this is going to be the case in the South, to where you're not going to get a fair shake, especially in states like Mississippi, Alabama, I'll even say Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, the South. I will just say the South. In the South, you will not get a fair shake. And even beforehand, I'm not talking currently, although the same thing could possibly happen. But in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you might as well just go ahead and get ready for the chair at that point, because that's what they want to do. They want to see you fry. So as much as this is somewhat of a good thing, I'm looking at the governor like, if the man didn't do anything wrong and you have the evidence to back that up, why aren't you granting clemency? Oh, right, because you're racist, which we all know Ivy is. But again, it's Alabama. Shouldn't be surprised. But moving right along, guys, I wanted to cover the story as well, because this last thing about Trump that I have before I go on the Democrats, this is going to sound very weird, but Trump wants his party to focus on deporting criminals. Yeah, you heard me right.
Wants Republicans to hit reset on one of the president's signature issues, and it's stirring up the GOP. Mass deportations, a critical campaign promise from candidate Trump 2 years ago. The party even printing the slogan on signs at the Republican National Convention and making it clear it would be a priority of his second term.
The largest deportation in the history of our country, history of the United States, American history.
Now, a tonal transformation. A source familiar with the matter tells NBC News that White House Deputy Chief of Staff and key Trump strategist James Blair told Republicans they should shift their message from mass deportations to focusing on the removal of violent criminals. As the GOP fights to hold on to the House majority by the skin of their teeth in November's midterms, some top Republicans recognizing the need to rebrand.
Some of the immigration enforcement was viewed to be overzealous, and, everybody can describe it differently, but here's the good news. We're in a course correction mode right now.
And it isn't hard to see why. The mass deportation agenda has drawn significant criticism over the last year, with high-profile 2024 Trump supporters like Joe Rogan questioning the administration's approach early in his term.
You can't deport gay hairdressers seeking asylum. That's crazy. And then throw them in an El Salvador prison.
Then protests over ICE raids built nationwide, accelerating after the deadly shootings by federal agents of 2 U.S. citizens, Alex Preddy and Renee Good. Our new NBC News poll shows 56% of Americans have a negative view of immigration and customs enforcement. Only Iran is viewed more negatively. But the Trump team's potential shift has left some on the right accusing the White House of softening its approach. Republican Senator Mike Lee suggesting he won't comply. Others calling it an absolutely disgusting betrayal. The White House's official line is, quote, nobody is changing the administration's immigration enforcement agenda, adding that President Trump's priority has always been deporting, in their words, illegal alien criminals. The big question, will the MAGA base actually punish the party for what appears to be a reversal? The rest of the president's second term may hang in the balance.
And that's the crazy part. The crazy part is, yes, you're probably wondering, we've heard this before. You have. But this is the problem with the current Gestapo ICE and Trump, again, realizing that the midterms might be his swan song. Might be his swan song. So what is he telling everybody? Oh, well, you guys really got to start talking about the fact of all the good we've done. We've gotten rid of all these criminals. No, you didn't get rid of criminals, dude. As much as you want to say, the people that you've rounded up, what, less than 3% were actually criminals? You've went after children at schools, graduations. You went after people at work. You picked them up from the side streets. 2 of your officers have caused deaths. So yes, a lot of people have looked at ICE and said, no, F ICE. They've said it. They looked at Kristi Noem and the Department of Homeland Security, and they've also called for ICE to be abolished, to be dismantled. So yes, they're going to have a hard time. They're going to have a most difficult time trying to relay that message in the midterms, because the simple fact of the matter is people are tired. People are tired of ICE being in the neighborhoods. People are tired of watching folks get rounded up for no reason when all they're trying to do is make a living. But what Trump is doing, he's trying to go back to the hits. Trump is trying his hardest to bring up the old hits, rile up that MAGA base that got him there. But here's the problem with that MAGA base. A lot of them don't like him. They may like Trump because, they still like the idea of watching their fantasy of a guy that can do whatever he wants without zero consequence. But the truth of it is, Trump may very well be on his way out. But again, that depends on the Democrats. And again, that depends on what they do. And with this next clip I'm about to show with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, here's what makes me very worried about the Democrats. And the fact of the matter is, the old guard, the centrist Democrats, or centrist or moderate Democrats, are still there, because this man had a hell of a question that should have been easy, and he fumbled it.
Life better and make their life more affordable, as opposed to another endless war in the Middle East where we're spending billions and billions of dollars to drop bombs and doing nothing to drop the high cost of living.
Well, your Democratic colleague, Democratic Congressman Jared Golden, is among those who voted to block the resolution. I want to read you a little bit of his statement from this week. He says, quote, the president has so far acted within the authorities given to him by Congress through the War Powers Act of 1973. He has been briefing Congress, and he has 60 days to make his case for ongoing operations. This is not an illegal war, but it could become one. How do you respond to your House colleague?
Well, every individual member, of course, is going to articulate their position. The overwhelming majority of both House and Senate Democrats have made the case to the American people and taken the position that this is a war of choice that Donald Trump decided to get into without any evidence being presented to us as members of Congress or to the American people.
But do you agree with Golden? It's not an illegal war yet?
To protect the national security of the American people. No, Jared obviously has a very different position. He's a hero. He fought in the Middle East bravely, and he's entitled, of course, to his perspective. But as I indicated, the American people are dissatisfied with this war of choice that Donald Trump has decided to enter into. And Donald Trump has not made a compelling case as to why we are in a situation where American servicemen and women, their lives are at risk.
Let's talk about the cost of this war, Leader Jeffries. The White House is reportedly weighing a request to Congress for tens of millions of dollars. Several Senate Democrats have said they're open to reviewing what the administration requests, arguing it could be critical to military readiness overall. As the leader of House Democrats, do you plan to block all Pentagon funding, even if the argument is it is critical for military readiness?
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it in terms of if the administration makes a request to Congress to consider additional funding. But at this particular point in time, the administration has failed to make its case as to the rationale or justification for this war of choice in the Middle East. Listen, candidate Trump promised that he was not going to get the country into an endless war, particularly in the Middle East, in the aftermath of what we saw in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. President Trump has now done the exact opposite. And absent him actually providing us with a compelling rationale, he's going to have a difficult case to make on Capitol Hill.
Leader Jeffries, let me ask you about another aspect of this. As you well know, President Trump.
I'm just going to stop it right there. That right there. That man had a literal alley-oop. Your colleague said that this was so far he's within the abilities of the War Powers Act, but this war could become an unjust one. Do you agree? Well, my colleague's entitled to his opinion. Okay. Well, the Republicans want to back the funding for this war going to Iran. Do you want to block it? We're going to cross that bridge when we get there because they didn't present it. See, how can I explain Hakeem Jeffries? He's more centrist and moderate. And I've said this many a time on this podcast. Centrist, moderate Democrats are Republican light. That should have been an easy layup. I oppose the war because it's unnecessary. We basically violated the rules of engagement to attack a country that had nothing to do with us. How hard is it to say that? Will you provide funding for this war? Hell no, we will not. This is an unjust war, and we will not provide funding for it. How hard? 2 layup questions. And Hakeem Jeffries has proven he is basically Chuck Schumer if Chuck Schumer had a tan and was 40 years younger. Because this, and again, guys, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying when it comes to Democrats. You want to know why folks don't really listen to you guys? You have Jasmine Crockett, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and other progressive women on the Democratic side actually saying the things that need to be said, doing the things that need doing. Whereas Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, at one point, Nancy Pelosi were all like, well, let's not make any rash decisions. But you'll side. And let's not forget earlier this year, let's not forget the government shutdown, to which 8 Democrats sided with the Republicans in order to push forward what the bill they wanted and broke the government shutdown at the point to where the Republicans were about to bend over after nearly 40 days. They were about to bend over and say, you know what? We're just going to agree. And 8 Democrats folded, Tim Walz being one of them. And now Hakeem Jeffries just sat there and said, well, we don't know. And I mean, I've never seen one be so indifferent to tap dance on both sides of the conversation and not say the obvious. America does not want another war. We do not want to send our young people to die in a needless war. Because let's be honest, those that are calling for war are not sending their children to it. Matter of fact, they will send their children away from it. And let's not also forget this whole thing with Iran. It started with Israel, because Israel told us they're going to bomb Iran with or without us. And what should have been said? What should have been said to that welfare queen Netanyahu? If you want to bomb Iran, if You want to start war? If you want to start a war with Iran, do it on your own. We will not help you. Because Israel can talk much big shit in the Middle East because they have the U.S. backing them up. And let's be honest, if the U.S. did not back Israel up, Iran and the other countries would have Israel subdued in a matter of months. That lets you know Israel needs us more than we need them. But hey, if Israel has free healthcare, free education, it's only because it's backed by US dollars. The same things that they said we can't have in the US, they now have in Israel. Been having it for decades. Which begs the question, who are we really serving here? But like I said, Israel will bark like a big dog when they're really a chihuahua being backed up by a government. And that's what got us here. But we're going to move on to our Feel Good segment, guys, because usually how the Frack we got here, we do say a lot of things, a lot of doom and gloom. Sometimes makes you faith in humanity, but hey, it's Wednesday. Tomorrow is Thursday. Today is my birthday. So happy birthday to me. If you did say happy birthday to me across my socials, I try to reach everybody. Thank you guys for, again, telling me and letting me saying happy birthday. I certainly appreciate it. Level 43, hopefully bring some new things, some good health and good fortune, I hope. But I still want to thank everybody before we get into the Feel Good News, guys. Thank you for that birthday, for the shout outs. I really do appreciate it. But today we have 3 stories. Why? Because good Lord, we need them. This first story was about a teacher that did a $20 kindness challenge to her students and did not expect it to go this far.
What did you do when I gave you the $20?
You may recall our story last year with English teacher Christina Ulmer and her tradition called the $20 Kindness Challenge.
Usually the first week or so, they'll say, are we doing your kindness thing?
Christina has become famous around Horsham, Pennsylvania for, twice a year, giving all of her high school students a crisp $20 bill with a simple assignment. Do something kind with it.
I donated toys to Glad Dogs Nation.
Whatever they choose, each act also honors Christina's sister, Kate, who tragically passed away in a car accident in 2014. Christina used the cash from Kate's purse to fund the first challenge a few years later.
Like I can just see her there doing the things that my students are doing. So it does make me think about her a lot more.
And now we have an update on that mission to honor Kate and spread her generous spirit.
Oh, after the piece aired, then the donations went up like crazy.
After our story aired, Christina says donations skyrocketed. In fact, a few months ago, Christina officially got the $20 Kindness Challenge registered as a nonprofit, which apparently...
Do you know that was your idea?
That was my idea?
You're the first person who were like, maybe you could help other teachers. And I was like, maybe I could.
Now with the challenge's increased influence and resources,
so grateful to have Christina's challenge.
Christina has inspired teachers in other states to try this with their students, like Amy in Delaware.
Christina, I cannot thank you enough.
And this coming April, for the first time, Christina will be funding another class. Fittingly, it'll be with Siri in New Jersey, who is Christina's typing teacher in middle school.
That feels pretty amazing to be able to give back to her.
And Christina has put resources on the website to help people start their own kindness challenge, guys. She has helped both churches and schools across the country throughout the past year.
Now, you can't tell me that's not pretty cool. The fact that one teacher inspired a classroom and now she's actually been able to help a lot more folks, all because taking $20 and just showing kindness. And this is why I say educators will always have a special place in my heart, because it's amazing what they can do or what they can inspire and what you can actually grow out of that. So the second feel-good story I have, again, this makes me, I can't, kids will always amaze me. Imagine a 4th grader that's taking college courses. It's not a fantasy, it's actually true.
A remarkable young student in Southern California is proving it is never too early to aim high. 10-year-old Honey Cooper, a 4th grader at Kimbark Elementary School in San Bernardino, is already balancing elementary school with college classes. Cooper has become a dual-enrolled student at San Bernardino Valley College, a rare achievement for someone her age. The young scholar hopes her story inspires other students to believe big dreams can start early. Honey, welcome to the show. It is so nice to meet you. So I understand that you are balancing 4th grade and college classes at the same time. Is that difficult? It's easy? What's it like?
Well, it's kind of difficult at first because you're firstly starting and it's literally like only Wednesday, so you have to balance your regular school and your college classes. But I soon got a hang of it, and it soon became easy for me to transition.
I'm sure it was. So is your 4th grade classwork even a challenge at all?
Not really.
How did you end up deciding, you know what, I think I'm ready in the 4th grade to start taking college classes?
I think it started because Miss Rodriguez said that, do you think that Honey can take some college classes? And then my mom asked, and I said, yes. And then so we asked about it, and then they agreed. So then we started to get enrolled.
And was that exciting for you? Were you feeling nervous? How were you feeling?
I was feeling a bit excited and nervous at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of kids your age may think, and for most of them it is, college is way off. What would you tell other students who have big dreams like you?
I would say keep going and never give up, because you can always do it even if you think it's hard.
So you're already taking college classes while most kids your age are just starting to think about middle school. What do you hope to study or become when you grow up?
I have like a lot of choices to choose from, but I either want to be a surgeon, a fashion designer, or an artist.
You have a long way still to decide, but honey, keep studying and plugging, and we hope to have you back on the show in just a few years when you'll probably already be a college graduate in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years from now. Honey, thank you so much for joining us. A pleasure to get to know
y'all. 4th grade. 4th grade. I'm sorry. I'm in amazement. I'm in amazement. 4th grade and taking college courses. She's a dual enrolled student. She sat there and said, "How are you dealing with homework in 4th grade?" I'm amazed, man. You know what? That'll be one. Kid's gonna be all right. There's no other way it's like it. There is no other way I could say it. They're gonna be all right, but 4th grade, I'm gonna be looking at my kids at 3rd grade like, look, if 4th grade can do it, y'all can do it. I'm playing. My kids, I'll be proud of whatever they want to be in life. But hey, if your butt can knock out college before 6th grade, not gonna judge. But the last story we do got, guys, for our Feel Good segment before we wrap it up. Again, a single mailman who has went viral. And again, it is amazing to me when you do good things, kindness comes along, goes a long way. But I'm going to shut up and just play the video.
Levante Harvey loves to sing, and when he delivers mail in the West Chicago neighborhood of Austin, he does that. One day, a woman heard him singing and asked if he'd come back to perform for her grandmother, who recently lost her husband of 50 years. Take a listen.
This for you, Grandma. Traded in the lazy days I used to lay down by the river. Oh, how I miss it. Out here smiling like this is the life. But
think how beautiful that is for you to see that when you are so lonely. Singing Mississippi by former American Idol winner Jamal Roberts. Levante telling us at GMA, singing isn't just music, it's ministry to him. It's about using his authenticity to share hope and joy. Well, that hope and joy quickly went viral when the granddaughter Whitney Cumbo posted it online, racking up 1 million views. It's just great. She also started a GoFundMe page to help Levante shorten his 2.5-hour commute on public transportation. Wow. And let's just say, internet, thank you for delivering. Check out his new way to get to work. Ooh. Yeah, that's right. You did that. Wow. His drive is now just 30 minutes. And Levante says he's blessed to have so much support from people, especially from the family that helped start it all.
Wow. Honestly, I love you guys so much. It's because of you so many doors have been opening for me that I've only dreamed of. And there are not enough thank yous in this world that I can honestly say or give you guys. Just know that you have my heart and I will always be here.
That's awesome.
Oh, that ride could get him here to GMA for the summer concert series. Levante says he's now in regular contact with the family, that his life has been transformed, and he wants to thank everybody who saw him sing on that door.
He's so authentic. The reason he wasn't doing it for anything but just to bring hope and joy to one woman.
That's why I wanted you to sing it.
Hey, look, if you can sing like that, and effortless, like, do not get me wrong. If you can sing like that, hey, sing your tail off, especially in a mailman position. But I'm glad that he was able to make somebody's day at the same time, transform his life, got himself a new ride. And like I said, kindness. It doesn't hurt to do it. It doesn't hurt to do it for other folks because you don't know what it can bring in your path. I always say, karma comes around, whether good or bad, and she ain't never late. But shout out to all those stories, guys. But that's going to do it for this podcast. Thank you all for liking, for watching, for letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate it. Again, thank you for the birthday shout outs. Even though we're about to head to World War III, thank you, everybody, for telling me happy birthday again. I try to catch everybody I can. And like I said, I'm surprised that so many do. It always surprised me that so many people do wish me happy birthday. And like I said, happy and humbled that folks do that, to take time out of their days. And for those, all I can say is thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. But shameless plugging before we do get out of here, guys. Shout out to APR TV. Why? Because How the Frack Got Here can be seen on APR TV. APR TV is an app that is on the Roku and also the Amazon Fire Stick. You can definitely check them out, as well as other shows. You will not be disappointed. Also, blerdstation.com. We talk about blerdstation.com all the time, guys. It is a streaming service that has movie, television, you name it, they have it. They did recently cover BlerdCon that did wrap up this weekend. If you are in the DC area, hopefully you do get a chance to check out BlerdCon. If not, you can go to the BlerdCon YouTube page to where you could actually go back and see the streams. So much Black excellence that was done there. And definitely a lot of surprises. Hopefully, if you're there to see BlerdCon next year, definitely go there. But for Blerd Station, you can definitely check them out. $10.99 a month to stream Blerd Station, and Blerd Station can be streamed on all smart devices. Definitely check them out. Also, check us out at How the Frack Got Here on YouTube. Again, if you just type in How the Frack Got Here, I'm very proud about this. If you type in How the Frack Got Here on YouTube, it'll take you directly to our page. You can like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification button anytime we do go live or a show is uploaded. I cannot stress enough to everybody that has done that already. Thank you, because again, without you, we're not getting very far. So if you are new to us, please also like and share and subscribe as well so you don't miss a thing, and I will certainly appreciate it. Also, check out Blerd's Eye View. Myself and others every Tuesday and Thursday do cover the world from a Blerd's Eye point of view. Again, we would love to have you, as we do like to have a lot of fun on the show. Also, from the Blerd's Eye View page on YouTube, you can actually follow all of us here. Roomful of Blurs, and she has her show every Sunday at 7 p.m. Geek by Heart, who also does, her and her husband do movie reviews, also do gameplay. She is currently doing Age of Calamity right now. Tafara TV Gaming, Tafara TV's second gaming channel, as he does modern and retro games, and he does it on a walking treadmill. Not too many people can do that, just saying. My other video game show, along with Tafara TV and Show Got Joe, at the Give It Podcast every Friday. You can't miss that. Of course, How the Frack Got Here will be on there as well. Navy Montel, BlerdCon Speaks, does speak with a lot of people in the Blerd community, as well as streaming tabletop gaming on his own. Also, Shoko, who is a looter shooter, does usually Lorcana and Overwatch. Lore of the Culture, as he does cover everything in the world of comics and Hollywood media. And of course, Tafara TV has his original page there. Definitely like, share, and subscribe with everybody there. Also, Whoopty freaking do, and also Fresh Pressed Nails by Z. Although she's not on here, she is definitely on the IG page as well. You can like and share and follow every one of us, guys, because we all have something to add to the table. And again, we're just trying to definitely showcase that for all of you here. Of course, How the Frack Got Here podcast can be heard on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast, whether visually or audio. You can definitely catch us there. Outside of that, guys, again, thank you for the birthday shout outs. Cannot stress that enough. Level 43 may bring great things for myself and my family and friends. I hope that's been my birthday wish. My birthday wish has always been that I just hope that things are better this year and we can moving forward, because progress is always the goal. Outside of that, guys, please work on your mental as well as your physical. Mental health is so vital. The body, where the mind goes, the body follows. Again, there are plenty of resources and services out there. Please don't take that last option to self-delete. Please, we need you. You are wanted. You matter. We need your verse to add to this great song of life. At the same time, men, I am talking to men, specifically black men in general. Please go to the doctor. Physicals are not enough. I am a workaholic. I'm a workoutaholic, I should say. Although I kind of am a workaholic, but I like going to the gym. I like working out, but it's not enough. I'm 43 now, which means that there are some things I am not looking forward to that a doctor has to check out. But I have to do that because I want to be around for the long term. I want to be around for my wife and my kids. So please, black men, make the time, see a doctor, make sure everything's all right. Physicals just ain't going to cut it anymore. Just saying. Outside of that, guys, protect your peace. You know, put the phone down for a second. Doom scrolling doesn't lead to anything but heart attacks and poor decisions. Go outside, enjoy the world, touch some grass, have some fun, talk with your friends, enjoy life, because in the end, we're going to be all right. But with that being said, guys, last things about how the Frack out here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, people. We are simply giving you all the information allowed you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past, been making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Federal Reserve as a Federal Reserve governor, and maybe one day, electing our first black woman to be called Madam President. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go but our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians every cycle, but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and I promise we will get through this. Live long and prosper, guys. I am out. Thank you for wishing me a happy birthday. I appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, guys. We're going to be all right. Peace.